Hello and welcome to the penultimate race of the All Assist Off League of Season 10, where we may well today be crowning a new Drivers' Champion. The Constructors' Championship looks like there's still a lot to be contested, and it's Baku that plays host to the penultimate race of the season. Joining me to bring you all of the action over the next hour or so is somebody who has spent more than enough time chasing me around the track of Baku. Skin, how are you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. Thank you. I think I've spent more time in the walls at the castle than I have actually racing you. But yeah, it should be a fun race, especially with rain. How are you doing tonight?
I'm very good, thank you. I thought this was going to be one of those races you expect it to be, with it being a street race, very close, not too much overtaking, but the rain in qualifying, we do have a short qualifying session, just the 18 minutes. It's going to make things very interesting to kick things off with, isn't it? We both know with the short sort of overtaking options you've got, you need to make sure you're having a good qualifying, and it's made tougher with these raining conditions.
Definitely. It's races like this where your starting position really pays off, your strategy really pays off, and pushing for those small opportunities, like you say, that you'll have during the race, especially at this time in the season. Penultimate race, we're all or nothing. It's not first 3-5 races of the season where you can afford a bit of a rubbish race. Like, if you're in with a chance of winning, now's your time to really go ahead and get it. So yeah, I'm sure the drivers tonight will be fully focused and ready to get the best result that they can.
Well, we have one McLaren out there at the moment. That's Guran1234. He's followed shortly behind by VSM Sandman, the current leader of the championship, the current defending champion as well in the Ferrari. Him and his teammate both together are leading the Constructors' Championship, but only 3 points from your beloved Red Bull. They're in second place at the moment. D. Perez, one of the two drivers, the other one being Nay Danger David, who's second place in the Drivers' Championship as well. So with this taken into account, Red Bull have had more podiums than Ferrari, despite only being second in the championship.
And it all comes down to this. That extra podium could be the deciding factor come the end of the race next week. That extra win could be the deciding factor. 2 races left and only the odd few points in it. Anything can happen and anything can be the difference.
Well, to get themselves over the line, Ferrari will be hoping for a repeat of the first race of the season in Netherlands, where they walked away with 211 points, including Sandman finishing on the top step of the podium. He's done that twice so far this season. Guran is now out on a timed lap. Number of other drivers out on an out lap as it stands at the moment. Remember, just an 18-minute qualifying session. It doesn't look like the rain's going to ease up at any point, so you'd expect it to be a case of intermediates for now. But you don't really want to leave it too long and risk the potential of missing out on intermediates if it gets too bad that you've then got to change over to wets, do you?
No, you've definitely, in these kind of circumstances, these conditions, you want to get out early, set a lap, get yourself comfortable with the track. Looking at a few drivers there, and Guran has gone into the wall and he has got wing damage. It looks like he will still be able to continue, but it'll be interesting to see how this may potentially affect out laps and timed laps. So Guran, who was due to be the first one to set a timed lap, crashing into the wall, you've got to assume now that he'll pit and someone else will be the first to cross the line. But yeah, not the best start for Guran. And looking at some of the drivers on their out laps, they're braking very early and it's very tight getting around those corners in the rain. So again, these first timed laps, get yourself comfortable with the conditions, with the track, get yourself into the pit and give yourself plenty of time to get back out if you need. But I'm just following Sandman at the moment. The championship leader, as you mentioned there, is in Sector 2 currently. But yeah, the first time lap due from Guran will now more than likely not be the case after he crashed into the wall.
He's coming up to the Castle Corner at the moment, the Crazy Golf Corner as I like to call it. We've had more than a few incidents on there. Taking the corners very nicely as well. Not too much. We saw a bit of aquaplaning from Guran that led to him going into the wall. A bit of wing damage. He's having to pit as a result of that. I think Maverick's come out onto the pit now, onto the track now as well, to try and help his McLaren teammate to get as high as possible before the race starts in around about 15 minutes time. Sandman taking a little bit of a spin as he's hit the chicane on the one of the final corners. The longest straight of the Formula 1 calendar is seen on the stop-start straight as he goes purple in Sector 2. Sandman now onto the final straight. Just a little bit of a right turn coming up for him. Then he's straight through to the line. I'd assume this is going to put him on provisional pole. I don't believe there's anybody else yet out there to set a time. Guran has gone into the pits just as confirmation. Nay Danger David, just a few moments ago, crossed the checkered flag, the line, to start his timed lap as well. And that is Sandman hitting a 157.7 in the rain in Baku. What's your thoughts on that?
Fantastic, and you could really see he was not necessarily struggling with the corners, but they were really tight corners. So again, this is going to be key. The conditions do look like they are drying up slightly. So is it a potential of people on time lapse? I'm just watching Danger David now, and he has slowed down going into sector 2. So has he noticed that the conditions have improved, and potentially he's going to jump back in the pits as Maverick 09 takes provisional pole, 157.0, 7 tenths quicker than the championship leader in VSM Sandman. But yeah, I'm just looking now, Adam. I'm not sure if you think the same, but it does seem to have dried up, and I do think Danger David is potentially he's slowed down to clear the track, and he's going to carry on in intermediates. But to me, it looks like conditions are drying up. What do you think?
What I do like about that Danger David, and this is why I believe he's going to be very close to maybe a pole position here, before I do answer your question, he's just hit 2 minutes 1, and before he went onto that pit straight, he was weaving to try and warm them tyres up, get a little bit of heat into the tyres, and he's only finished 4 seconds behind what Maverick at the time was the leader of qualifying. He only finished 4 seconds behind him, so I've got him as a favourite at the moment to go on and get pole position. We know that he can do that. Only 2 of his races so far has finished outside of a podium finish, one of which he didn't actually take part in. So he's had a second in Netherlands, second in Austria, didn't take part in Saudi Arabia, 5th in Brazil, 2nd in China, and 1st in Hungary. So he's there or thereabouts in the majority of his races. He's more consistent than what VSM Sandman's been at so far this season. So if he can get himself on pole position, I'd very much fancy his chances to get Red Bull over the line and get them a win. As we saw Dan 11:03.87 hit 1:55. Yeah, I think the times that people are setting at the moment is telling you that the track is starting to dry up. But at what point do you take that risk? I mean, there's some out there at the moment in the pits that might look at this as potentially moving on to a soft tyre surface, do you think?
We can't be too far away, surely. Sandman's just gone quickest by almost 3 seconds. 151.9 he's just set as Danger Dave approaches the final straight. Yeah, I'm really...
Well, I'll let you know. Toxic C210 has already set himself up for soft tyres in preparation for coming out. He's still in the pits at the moment, but he's moved himself onto soft tyres ready to come out. So he might have had this idea in his mind for one of the Alfa Romeos that soft tyres is the right option, and it could pay off for him with everybody else out there with just under 10 minutes left on the intermediate tyres. We've got a yellow flag over in Sector 2. Now Danger David hits pole position by nearly a full second over VSM Sandman, and then runs wide going into the first corner. He's just going to have to ease and allow one of the McLarens to go past him. I think that's going to be Garan 1234, who's out there after his earlier incident trying to get himself a time, should I say. Only half of the track have actually been out there in sack times, and we are over halfway through the qualifying session.
Yeah, looking at Danger Dave's time, I was on board with him during that hot lap, and he did clip the wall going into the final straight, so didn't look like he took too much damage. He's still set provisional pole. I'm just on board with D. Perez, his teammate for Red Bull, who was due to set a time but has pitted instead of setting that time. So it'll be interesting to see if that's a decision where he thinks now's the time to get a dry tyre on. I'm very quickly running through the track of who is out on the field, and there is still the drivers that are out, 4 drivers out at the moment, all on intermediate. So it doesn't seem like anybody has made the decision to go onto a dry tyre. Yeah, everyone's still on intermediate, so it will be interesting as we approach the second half of a qualifying session. We're now into it with just over 8 minutes left. You've got to assume that drivers will start taking a risk now on a drier tyre.
I think that's why Garan slowed down. I'm just on board with Garan at the moment. Of course, aquaplaning earlier, going into the wall, losing the front wing. He's now out there on intermediates, taking things very steady on what it looks to be a timed lap as well. So perhaps he's going to drop into the pits and move himself onto soft or medium tyres. VSM Sandman has changed himself onto soft. We've got multiple now on the left side of the screen. Ivor 32, Sir Ibo, all moving on to soft tyres. D. Perez, you mentioned then, moving on to soft tyres. Trugster also onto soft tyres. And as predicted, Garan's gone in. He's not yet set a time. He's gone in, and it looks like he's going to move himself onto soft tyres. So this could change things massively, but it could also change things for the race as well. A 26 lap race means you do have to pit in on dry circumstances. You have to use more than one of the option tyres. That's soft, that's medium, or that's hard. You have to use 2 of those. So it changes your tactic a little bit for the race as well, doesn't it? If you've been using intermediates, you've got the option to start on any. When you go out onto qualifying now, more often than not, the one that you do the qualifying the fastest time on is the one that you're set to start on as well. As we can see, some of the soft tyre drivers coming out: Toxic, D. Perez, Sir Ibo, Ivor, and
Toxic
VSM Sandman all coming out on softs.
Is out without setting a time. I have unfortunately missed why that is, but Toxic will now be starting at the back of the grid. He is out. So D. Perez, as I mentioned, was on board for his hot lap. He's coming for softs, and he is now out. The track is dry, conditions are dry. It's time now, isn't it, to get the softs on and really push. But in terms of tactics and strategies that you mentioned there, me personally, I do prefer starting on a soft and then moving on to a medium, just because, especially with an online league where adrenaline is high, it's towards the end of the season, there's potential for people lunging in that first couple of corners, potential for a little bit of damage. So for me personally, if I was racing this, I would look to start on a soft, and then you mitigate the risk of, if you do end up taking some damage in that first lap, you can pit for a medium or a hard and potentially see out the rest of the race. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see who takes a risk and who plays it a bit more conservative going into the race. But D. Perez has now started the hot lap on softs. From what I can see, I do think they're going to be the first person, I might be wrong on this, Adam, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I do think they're going to be the first person to set a time lap. Oh no, they're not. We've got Ivor 3-2 going down the home straight now. They're going to be the first person to set a time on softs, and they set a... nothing, apparently. Don't know what happened
waiting
there.
in anticipation for that one.
No, they must have been going slow round on that lap, because they have not moved up the board. So it is, by the looks of it, going to be D. Perez for the Red Bull, setting the first time on a soft tyre. A couple of comments on the YouTube stream, Adam. A couple of people saying hi from the Czech Republic, so I thought just give them a shout out. I've been to Prague myself probably about 4 years ago.
Same.
Yeah, one of the best weekends of my life, an absolutely beautiful place. And so shout out to them, and thank you for watching the stream, and I hope you're enjoying the coverage and the commentary that goes with it.
Well, D. Perez has made the right decision going out on the soft tyres. I don't know if it was a result of going on the soft maybe a little bit too soon for Toxic that led to them crashing out. I didn't, of course, see the incident either, but D. Perez has gone purple in Sector 1. He's just gone purple in Sector 2, so I'm just going to wait and see if he can beat the 1:47.6 that was set by T-Brand 1 that is currently the pole sitter. Everybody out on track at the moment is on soft tyres. Skid Solo is on intermediates, but he's still in the garage at the moment. Just waiting for him and T-Brand both with the opportunity to come out from the pits again, as we just wait for D. Perez to cross over the line and see if he can beat a 1:47.6. He does quite comfortably as well. 1:43.5 puts D. Perez on provisional pole, and if he can continue with a bit of momentum, might be able to beat that on the second attempt. I don't think he's really got time to go back into the garage and come back out again. A bit of a longer track is Baku, so 1:43 is not a bad time to be hitting. Looking up and down the grid at the moment, T-Bran is now out onto an outlap. He was the pole sitter before. The current leader of the championship, VSM Sandman, is out there at the moment. Ivor has set a time for you now. He's at a 1:43, and the times are getting quicker. VSM Sandman just at a 1:41.3. Ivor hit a 1:43.4, which did put him in pole, but VSM Sandman has since taken that pole position away from him. We've got quite a few out there just looking on track at the moment. We are with Sir Ibo as it stands, coming up to finish Sector 1. He's on a timed lap as well. 1:41.3 is the time to beat. We've got quite a few out there that haven't yet set a time. Leaving it this late, I know the rain's gone and now it's a bit of an easier track to run around. You've still got to think, with everybody out there at this point, not setting a time is extremely risky, especially at this point of the season. Definitely,
and you've got to kind of... Again, this is where strategy comes in, because you don't want to get bogged up in traffic, because if you do, this is potentially a one shot at getting a lap. I'm just on board with Danger David at the moment. He's gone round Castle beautifully. I've probably done over 100 laps on this track, and I've never done that as well as what I've just seen from him there. So he's going to be looking to get on that front row, if not provisional pole. Fantastic lap from Sandman. I was following him Sector 3. And he currently leads by around 8/10 on that provisional pole. But Danger David on board now, going round one of the final corners, currently going 8 seconds quicker than his fastest lap, which would put him around on the second or third row, so he's going to have to find a lot in this last couple of corners, heading on to, as you mentioned earlier, the longest straight on the F1 calendar. See where he gets. He will still have time for another lap, but I don't think he definitely won't have time to pit again and go again. So Danger Dave goes provisional pole. What a sector 3. He is currently 8/10ths quicker than the championship leader as Sandman pits. Will he have time to pit, change his tyres and get back out again to hopefully reclaim that provisional pole? Adam, what a lap from Danger David there on the time when he needs it most as the season is coming to an end.
Yeah, I said he looked very comfortable when he was out there on the intermediates at the beginning, and then he, of course, went in to try and get himself onto softs with enough time to set a time, and he's done a fantastic job. And since his race that he missed in Saudi Arabia, he's been in phenomenal form to get himself back within a shout of the championship and battling with VSM Sandman. A bad result for him today, or a very strong result for VSM Sandman, could end the championship this evening. So we're hoping that it's going to go down to the wire. From a neutral perspective, we'd like to see in Abu Dhabi both of them fighting for the championship one last time. But provisional pole, he's done as good as he can. A Rush has retired from the session. Dan 110387 has retired from the session as well. Neither of those will be taking part in the remainder of qualifying. Sir Ibo, when I was on board with him as well, hit a 1:48.005. I'm going to ride on board now with Garan 1234, who is on out lap. He's had 2 attempts of setting a time, and on both occasions has seen himself heading into the pits for different reasons. So he's looking likely to be able to get himself over the line and do one last timed lap. The Mercedes of RS 0121 also out there on track at the moment. They're the only two that haven't set a time, that still have the possibility of setting a time. It is Nay Danger David at the moment who is sat on pole position. It's Sandman's just going to accept second place, so it's all about the start in Baku, and it's one of them starts, isn't it, that's quite short, so you've got to try and get a very good start to keep that lead position, haven't you, as RS 0121 takes third place and just runs off track ever so slightly. We are going to stick alongside Garan then, see if he can get himself a good time. 9 seconds to get himself over the line and get himself a timed lap. Is he going to make it over the line in time? He has done, which means we are going to stay on board with him for the remainder of the qualifying session as the one of the only few that's still out there that could improve on his time. Currently sat in 18th place in the McLaren. His teammate Maverick up in 14th place, takes the first one with a bit of wind behind the back of his car. There is RS0121 has been disqualified for parking in a dangerous location. No penalty for him though for grid place, so he will remain up there. In fact, I think it has given him a grid place penalty. In saying that, I think it's disqualified him, so it's moved him down to 19th place. So he doesn't actually get the time that he set. He doesn't get the third place, which means Trugster moves back up, and he moves down into 19th place. As Garan takes a spin again, it looks like it's going to be a case of no time set for the McLaren, and he's going to start in 17th place. It's been a very difficult qualifying session for Garan as well, hasn't it? The crash on the first one, the decision to change from intermediates onto softs on the second one, and then again spinning off, and that's what this track does to you, doesn't it? And you do that in the race, and we could be in for chaos.
Yeah, absolutely. I've just been on board there with Vinny 91 Enzo, who's pushed himself up to third with a 41.8. RS 0121, not really sure what they've done there to get disqualified. They were in a great starting position, but it seems that even in a street race, you still can't park up on double yellows. So big mistake there as he's ended up now starting from the back of the grid. But great final lap from Vin Enzo there to get third place. Sandman, that's the kind of lap they'll be looking at, won't they? Sandman now with his teammate in third. Gives them the chance now, if he's going to be a good teammate, to defend, push the rest of the pack back. Well, Sandman changed Danger David and hopefully seals the championship. So should be a very interesting first couple of corners now with how qualifying is looking like.
I think we could have been for a very exciting start to the race as well, with Garan potentially in third place. Had he been in third place to finish the session, his last 3 races he's finished second, first and second. So he's really pushed himself up this championship table as well. So that's a shame. But it is Danger David that takes pole position. He is leading with the Red Bull for the driver's perspective, but it is Ferrari in second and third as we get ready for the penultimate race of Season 10 for the All Assist Off League in Baku. So it does look like we're in for quite an exciting race. Just going to wait for everyone to be able to progress that further forward. So the standings, if you aren't aware, VSM Sandman is sat first place on 500.5 points. He is 65 points ahead of 56 points ahead from Nay Danger David, who is in second place. Those two are your front two at the end of qualifying. Third place is Frankie 1811 in the Alpha Tauri, who I believe is missing this race as well. I apologise, is in sixth place, ready for qualifying. Just looking at the results there, Vinny takes third place, Truckster in fourth, A-Rush taking fifth place, Quincy in seventh, T-Bran in the Alfa Romeo in eighth place, Ivor taking ninth place, D. Perez in 10th place in the Red Bull. So a lot of work here then, Skin, for Red Bull to be able to really keep themselves competitive against the Ferrari. They may be on pole position, but with Ferrari second and third, and their teammate at the back stages of what would normally be a Q3 session as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'll be honest, watching this race or commentating on this race should be much more competitive than watching real F1 at the moment. We have to comment on it. We have to preview and review races as part of our podcast, Loaded Sport. And I'll tell you what, for our episode this upcoming week, we might have to review this one as opposed to Spain, because I think it's going to be much more competitive and much more exciting. So very, very excited to see what strategies drivers are going to come up with. Are people going to take risks because of the championship leaderboard? Are people going to be conservative because of the championship leaderboard, especially that front row? Who's going to be the first one to make a move? And could it potentially cause chaos with the tight streets of Baku? We'll very shortly find out.
What approach do you take into this race? And so you've done the qualifying session. What strategy are you going for? You said yourself that you like to start on the soft tyres, get yourself that bit of an advantage before you move over to maybe the slower tyre. But in a street race, in Baku in particular, apart from that pit straight, it is mainly corners, isn't it? So you don't really get too much of an advantage from them soft tyres as we do prepare for lights out. And here we go with No Danger David getting I was going to say an excellent start. It's formation lap with the
We're
two
not
green
used to
lights.
doing formation laps, mate. That's why that threw both of us off there. I thought, fuck me, they're letting Dave just have a go at free run here.
I can't wait until after the fifth lap. We don't only normally do these things for 5 laps.
Yeah, true. But yeah.
So yeah, what approach are you taking? You can see some of the decisions that people have gone for. It looks like a lot are going with the hard tyres in this setup. We've got a mix of medium and hard tyres, except for Toxic, who starts in 18th place on the soft tyres. So the top two both starting on medium. Looks like potentially a split strategy for Ferrari, with Sandman on medium and Vinny Enzo on hard.
Yeah, and RS has confirmed in the Discord that the reason for the illegal parking was because the controller died. So it's a rookie error when you're entering a competitive league, and it's hard luck there. So a great lap put him in third place. Unfortunately, now has to start at the back of the grid. It looks like he's starting on mediums. But yeah, the interesting thing is there, as you mentioned, the front row starting on mediums, both Danger David and Sandman starting on mediums, and then Vin Enzo starting on hard. So a little bit of a different approach. But looking at the track, I think it is almost a split between hards and mediums. We've just got Toxic in 80 starting on softs, and I think other than that it's probably a 60-40 split, slightly leaning towards medium. So should be very interesting to see when drivers start to pit, and making sure as well that there's no clashes with their teammates, and making sure they're as efficient as possible with the strategy. So 26 laps are coming up. There's going to be chaos, there's going to be crashes, there's going to be damage, there's going to be changes to strategies because of what happens in the race. But really excited to see, because I've got a feeling that Danger David is really going to have to push. Sandman can afford to be a little bit more conservative, but could that lead to some chaos in these first couple of corners? Well, we'll see very shortly as Danger David becomes the first driver in pole position to head back to the grid.
D. Perez in 10th place, the second Red Bull, going to start on hard tyres with his teammate on pole position on the medium. So split strategies from both Red Bull and Ferrari. Hoping for a quick start from Ferrari into this first corner. Like we've said, it's a very short start into the corner, isn't it? So that's where you really expect to see if there's going to be a risk, maybe from the back. That's where you expect to see it. Sandman's been disqualified. Sandman has been disqualified. This could be interesting. I'm not quite sure what he's done there, but he has been disqualified. So has Maverick. So
oh my God! What's
so
happening?
Racing Wheel.
It's chaos. I said chaos when the race started.
We haven't even started, and we've got 3 disqualifications, including the championship leader. VSM Sandman has been disqualified, which means it moves Vinny Enzo up into second place, and it is advantage Red Bull, currently second in the Drivers' Championship, second in the Constructors' Championship.
No, we're back. It's fine. They're all back. Oh my God!
I'll let you take the start. The disqualification has been just cancelled, and that's it. Everyone's back in the race as lights out, and here we go. Nay Danger David moves himself into the central as Vinny Enzo gets jumped twice into first place on the hard tyres, and it looks like it's been a spin. It's been for Danger David.
He has dropped right down to the back of the grid. He's facing the wrong way, and that is Sandman has moved back into first. Danger David has dropped to the back of the grid, and if that is not the single perfect start for Sandman, I don't know what is, but there is a safety car.
He's in first place. He's got his teammate in second place. Danger David there as well has been given a 5-second time penalty for a collision with Racing Wheel 027. The two of them currently sat at the back of the grid. I think the saving grace for Danger David there at the moment is the fact that the safety car, as you say, is out. So we've got one corner, a very short corner. We said that there's a chance there's going to be a couple of lunges. We've gone from disqualifications before the race even started to now a safety car on lap 1. 26
it does look
lap
like a
race
virtual
underway.
Safety car, just to confirm. I don't think it's full safety car. It does seem to be virtual, but yeah. I mean, Adam, we're halfway through lap 1. Is that not the single perfect start for Sandman?
Yeah, that's exactly what you want from Sandman and from Ferrari. They've now gone from second and third on the grid to first and second, and it's not just worked out perfectly in that aspect. Dean Perez has also dropped from 10th place down to 16th place. So as it happens for them, they've gone from first and 10th to 16th and 19th, and we will see if there's going to be, under the VSC, any potential pit stops from any of the drivers.
Dave's going to have to pit. He's driving around with no wing. Potentially serve the time penalty as well. But again, the VSC has now gone. Green flags are out, so I'm sure he was hoping that the yellow flag would have stayed until it had got into the pit. So, yeah, it's going to be a long 25 laps ahead for Danger Dave now, as Sir Ibo is out. Sir Ibo is out. I've missed the incident, but he is in the side of the wall going into the final straight. So that is our first driver to be out. I mean, what a first lap already. Some drama, as Sandman is now just over a second ahead of his teammate, and Danger Dave goes into the pits. There's not really much. There's a few pitting. 6 drivers have pitted at the end of lap 1. There's not really much in terms of potential overtakes. Just on board with a Dan 110387, got to be the date of birth, in 10th place. Approaching Garan 1234, but again, as we've mentioned already, hard to overtake on this track. And Garan is in the wall, which means Dan has managed to get round and move up into 9th place. Garan is still in the race, but I'm going to guess some wing damage, which will mean he will have to pit at the end of the second lap. But Dan 110387 moves up into 9th, as now Kwan in the Williams, in the Williams, approaches Garan to attempt to take that final point spot, and he has very comfortably. Garan, with that wing damage, struggling now to take corners, and has moved down to 12th from 9th in just 2 or 3 corners. So
he's gone straight into the wall. Garan's out. He's gone straight into the wall as he's kind of rejoined the track after going a little bit wide just before the Castle corner. He's gone into the wall there, got himself back on track, and his car's just completely lost control and gone to the right and into the wall. And I think we might actually see a full safety car here, because it's in the middle of the track. So there's a real chance that we're going to see a safety car, which then changes the strategy once again from a lot of these drivers, doesn't it? Some have already been into the pits. A lot of the backside of the grid have actually been into the pits as well. So this uphill task for Red Bull looks to be getting a lot tougher, seeing as they are constantly being held at a speed advantage. Yeah,
and currently nobody has made that decision to go into the pits, but Sandman 2.5 seconds ahead. Not that it matters too much under yellow flag conditions, but was looking very comfortable up until that point. Adam, will this, as it stands with the permutations and where Sandman stands in the championship, would this be confirmation of a championship win should the results stay as they are currently?
Yeah, the points work very differently. It's not your traditional 25 points for a win and an extra point for the fastest lap. I think the point for the fastest lap is still in there. I don't think we've actually got a fastest lap because we're 3 laps in and everything's been halted by a safety car or VSC as it has been on both occasions so far. But yeah, I think Danger David needs to at least finish in the points to pile the pressure onto VSM Sandman. But as it stands, if he finishes in 17th and Sandman takes the win from second place, I think that will confirm that he's the champion. I think it will also make this an extremely uphill task for Red Bull going into Abu Dhabi. They are currently 3.5 points behind Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship, but with Ferrari getting a 1-2, I think that puts them in a different postcode for where Red Bull's championship hopes are for this season. But this was disappointing because Red Bull have had a good second half of the season. They've really started to pile the pressure on Ferrari and make this a bit more of a 2-horse race. Who I do think have a bit of an outside shot is AlphaTauri. I don't think they're going to go and compete with Ferrari this season, but I think they've got every reason to compete with Red Bull before this season's over, with them being in 3rd and 4th place, both Trugster and Frankie 1811 in 3rd and 4th place. They're currently 3rd place. They are 93 points away from Ferrari, so they could really close that gap on Red Bull. Maybe even jump them if both Red Bulls finish outside of the points today, as Ivor takes the fastest lap on 1:47.3. I expect that to be beaten over the next couple of laps as cars start to reach a bit more of their potential speed as he gets past A-Rush 05 as well. We will ride on board with Ivor, who is now leading a little bit of a pack. That's where you start to see the grid kind of split as well, isn't it? When Garan took that damage, he was being held up and he was holding up quite a few other drivers behind him as well, and it really allowed some of them ahead in the top 10 to get a bit more of a distance. But No Danger David now by default down in 17th place, but he has had his pit stop. He's come back out onto the same medium tyres though, so he's still got to go in at some other point as D. Perez, and then RS 0121 takes the fastest lap on 1:46.3 in the Mercedes down in 15th place. As I said, he's had quite a good last couple of races, finishing on the podium on all 3 occasions, and if it wasn't for an unfortunate error, could have been in a similar sort of situation as No Danger David goes and takes the fastest lap as A-Rush 05 goes out of the race, and we're on yet another yellow flag. And it looks like, is it a safety car? It's a full safety car this time around.
Perez is on his side. He is going to be climbing head first. I was on board during the crash. He's hit the corner and he is currently having a rush of blood to the head because he is practically upside down. So this so far is a torrid race for the Red Bulls. A full safety car now out, and I tell you what, as comfortable as Ferrari are, we've still got another 22 laps, and with what's happened in the first 4, anything can happen between now and the end of the race. But yeah, D. Perez for Red Bull on its side. He's going to have to do a cartwheel to get out of the car. I hope he's okay. But Trugster for the AlphaTauri is chasing Vinny to push into second place. He's been on his tail now for at least a couple of laps, but the safety cars are really halting the momentum. But it does seem like once the safety car goes back in, he's going to be making a big push to get that second place. So it must be really frustrating that the momentum and the gaps that he keeps closing is halted constantly by the precautions that are in place because of the crashes. But after 5 laps, or after 4 laps now in the 5th lap, we've got 4 drivers out already. So anything can happen between now and the end of the race. But I am sure Sandman is feeling very, very comfortable as it stands.
Well, T-Bran has just come out of the pits under the safety car. I think that's a great strategy because he's now leading of everybody that's been into the pits. And you've got everybody ahead of him hasn't yet gone in, and I think they've all passed without going in. So they're all going to line up behind the safety car. There's still 21 laps. You'd assume around about 18 laps once the safety car does go back in. And T-Bran at the moment has put himself in a very favourable position as RS0121 falls to the back. No Danger David moves up into 14th place. He currently holds the fastest lap on, I think it was about 3 seconds quicker than the lap before him as well. So you're just looking at some on the left-hand side with the amount of stops that they've had. Kwan, who had that opportunity to get past Gran earlier, was held up for a little bit. He's currently in 9th place. I think with the way this race has already set itself up, we're going to have people in points just for finishing the race.
And I tell you what, that sounds like a bit of me, that, because when we play, that's half the time when I do get points. It's just because I've caused that much chaos that half the track haven't managed to finish the race. So could have big implications for the Constructors' Championship going into the final race, because there's going to be some drivers that have struggled a bit that are going to get points, and there are going to be some drivers that have been really strong and contributed to their team's total who aren't going to take points. So it'll be really interesting to see what impact this race is going to have going into the final race next Monday in Abu Dhabi.
Do you think that not pitting under the safety car in first and second is a missed opportunity from Ferrari?
Well,
especially because considering the start that they've had, Danger David fell to the back of the grid. D. Perez is now out. Do you think at least one of those cars could have come in for a pit stop? Because now you've got to think that there's, maybe 6-7 seconds that's going to separate them once that safety car goes in. If that, I don't even think it'll be that's the difference between Danger David and Sandman. They've still then got to pit, so all he's got to do is keep himself within a good 15-20 seconds, and he could take himself back to the front of the grid.
Quite possibly, yeah. And traditionally, sort of when we've played online, look, these are playing in online leagues, and I have no talent on this game outside of causing utter chaos, but you would assume that the default strategy would be, if a safety car comes out, you pit to kind of mitigate the fact that, you know, safety car's out, you take advantage of that. So quite interesting to see that next to no drivers have taken that, and yeah, it does play into Danger David's hands, having already pitted. It'd be interesting to see what that does for the rest of the race. I can see Ferrari's reasoning. You know, you don't want to get bogged down in traffic, and then you come out of that safety car and you're stuck in the middle of the pack and you wait for others to pit, and that slows you down. So keeping that open track ahead of them, sticking to the strategy, they must be trusting what they had in place before this race started, because as it stands 6 laps in, they've not moved away from that despite what's happened. So they must be confident in what their plan was pre-race.
In saying that, the safety car isn't coming in this lap. I think he's going to stay out for one extra lap just to allow all the cars to catch back up. That is Racing Wheel and RS0121. The two drivers have both had 2 stops for the Alpine and the Mercedes, respectfully, and I think they're going to be able to catch them over the next couple of corners as they come up towards, coming up towards Castle Corner, should I say. Vinny and Sandman about to join on the very long pit straight. So it's been an entertaining debut for us as well, hasn't it? This is the first experience we've had of a real online league, and so far it has been sheer chaos and drama. 6 laps in, we've had 4 retirements. We've had the pole sitter moved down to the back of the grid, and he's starting to work his way up. We've had the championship leader and his teammate jump from 2nd and 3rd up to the top position, and there's a chance that AlphaTauri now could even leapfrog Red Bull in the championship standings. So we've got it's all set up to be an excellent 18 laps, providing the safety car and Bert Mylander can get himself a little bit of a break when he gets back to the pit stops, or the pit lane, should I say, before he's required to come back out. As we can see, Trugster has gone into the pits. Interesting, just before the safety car is to go in, he's going to box, and he started on medium tyres, and it looks like he's going to box for hards. So with the 18 laps that are going to be left, he joins the back of the grid. He's now served his 1 pit stop, and if he can keep those hards till the end of the race, it gives him a very good chance. His teammate, Frankie 1811, takes 3rd place from him. He remains out there at the moment on the medium tyres. So both drivers on the AlphaTauri started on mediums. One has now switched over to the hards. Interesting that he's done that on the final lap of the safety car, though.
Yeah, must have. You would assume that he's been a bit unsure all the way around and thought, you know what, I'm going to take it now while it's still there, instead of regretting it later. So can't say blame him. When we've been online, it's certainly the strategy we take to try and take advantage of that safety car, and it will be interesting to see how it pays off, considering that nobody else at the top of the grid has decided to go in while the safety car is out. But yeah, a bit slow in proceedings at the moment. Safety car, you would assume, will be coming in very shortly. I am currently on board with Vinny, Enzo, and it'll be interesting to see if and when this safety car, if the safety car will go in, but when the safety car goes in, will he push to get to the top of the grid, or will he be a good teammate and hold the rest of the pack off to help Sandman try and regain that gap that he had before the safety car comes out? What would you do in this situation if you were sat in 2nd, your partner was in 1st, and a very good chance of securing the championship? Do you be Mark Webber, or do you be someone else that might not be?
Do you be anybody else?
Or would you be anybody else and try and push into that first corner?
I think you've got to look at it as where they are in the standings themselves. Vinny Enzo isn't within a championship shout. His team are. His teammate is. He's not. He's on nearly half the points that Sandman is. So to me, you've got to look at it as, you sit back, you do the teammate thing. You allow your teammate to get that sort of advantage, because if you can not necessarily just sit back and wait for them to overtake you, but if you can defend where possible and not so much push onto Sandman, you're giving your teammate then that opportunity to get as far ahead from his nearest competitor as possible, so that when he pits, that pit stop is pretty much free. And if it is a case of Vinny Enzo takes first position as a result of it, then so be it. It is what it is. Second place will still work for Sandman if Danger David doesn't get some very strong points out of this race. But I think that's what we're going to expect to see, as the green flag is back upon us and we are back underway, heading up into turn 1, riding on board with Danger David, just behind Maverick. He's got a lot of work to do now if he's to try and catch some of these cars ahead of him, as we've already got a yellow flag in Sector 1. I'm not quite sure where that's come from, though, as it looks like it is T. Bran, who I said set himself up very nicely by going in for that pit as soon as the safety car came out. He's now dropped to 15th place, what is known now as the back of the grid, as it stands after coming off on turn 1. That little runoff that's available there as well. He's turned around and got himself back on grid. Doesn't look like there was any damage. He's good to still carrying on, as it's also Kwan who's dropped back as well after spinning off ever so slightly. He's fallen down into 14th place on the grid. He's dropped down to 15th place, should I say, now, as Brand's continued, and there has been a couple of cars spinning off, and it looks like
the wall. He's currently turning round. He's dropping down, which means Danger David is now back in the points in 10th place. Toxic is now lined back up. But yeah, that's huge for Danger David, and the virtual safety car is out, so yet another stoppage as we are around a third of the way through the race. But heading into the second third of the race, Danger David is back in the points, and like you said earlier, probably on now for a big push up the grid to get some points. But very interesting, we were talking about that first couple of corners. Vincenzo, he played the Mark Webber role there and held off and allowed Sandman to get in front. At no point looked like they were going to push, but yeah, the virtual safety car will clog up the gaps again. So I'm sure to this point it's playing into Danger David's hands, but at some point you just want to see them race, don't you? You don't want this all the way around. So hopefully things will start to open up a little bit as we approach the second third of the race.
I think we've had a yellow flag or a VSC or a full safety car for every lap of the race so far, as we do see one entering into the pits. That is Maverick. It allows Danger David to move up into 9th place. These safety cars, these VSCs, have really stopped Sandman from being able to push himself too much further ahead from second in the Drivers' Championship in Danger David, whose tyres, he pitted, I believe it was on the first lap after taking some wing damage, and his medium tyres, he's still got to pit again. He started on medium. He's still on medium at the moment. He's been put under pressure by T-Bran as well, who went off at the end of the safety car. He's been putting him under pressure. Danger David spun a little bit. He's managed to regain control of the car and continue pushing forward. He's got to try and get himself as high up that grid as possible, because the way, of course, he's got to try and get himself as many points as possible, but swapping from medium to medium on that first lap may be what costs him at the end of this, considering the fact that we think about how he's got to move up and Sandman's still got to pit. So is he. So that 17 seconds that's between them now needs to be a lot closer, and he needs to be making sure that he's much more competitive and maybe taking a few more risks towards the back stages of this race. But there's a reason why he's racing, and I'm just talking about him racing, so we'll wait and see what he decides to do there. He's in 9th place as it stands at the moment. He seems to have gained himself a little bit of distance ahead of T-Bran. I'm hoping that we do actually get to see DRS at some point. I don't think we've been able to see it this race due to the yellow flags and the VSCs that have been in and amongst us. So almost a 4-second lead in that lap from Sandman over his teammate Vinny Enzo. So what's your thoughts on how that's transpired? We spoke about how we thought that maybe he'd sit back and allow Sandman to push himself on. It looks like that's exactly what he's done.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at Danger David there, you can tell. He'll know he'll be in front, he'll know he'll be comfortable. And I think that's why you're seeing the little clippings. When you know you have to be aggressive, when you know you have to take risks, Baku is probably the worst track to know that you need to be in that mindset. And I think that's where we're seeing those couple of corners where the back's kicking out a little bit, or he's clipping a wall just, and the mindset, it must be tough for Danger David because he knows he's got to take risks. He can't afford to be conservative and just take the points. He's got to be attacking a podium spot to make sure he's still within a chance going into that last race. So really tough track Baku is. It's hard, but there's not really much in terms of overtaking opportunities at the moment. I'm just flicking through the grid. There's only one driver within half a second of the driver
saying
in
that,
front.
I think Dan was about to take a bit of a leap there, and Ivor up for 5th place, just going into Castle Corner. It looked like he was considering making a move onto the inside, but dropped out of it at the last moment. He is moving in towards the DRS zone now, as well as they come up towards the start of, or the end of Sector 2, should I say. Getting ready for that straight. He is within the DRS zone as well, so it looks like he's going to have that opportunity on the straight if he can get past him, take up into 5th place with his Alpine as Maverick gets past Toxic, and we have a yellow flag in Sector 3 potentially related as Quincy falls back and Dan moves up into 5th place. He's now battling with Evil for 4th place. He's still within the DRS zone if he can do that as well. Yellow flag out in Sector 2. I'll let you have a look at where that's just gone, Skin, as he's battling for 4th place. DRS is open, and he's got that opportunity now if he can close down on Evil, going past the pit lane as we speak, coming up to the first corner, just not quite enough to get past him at this attempt, but he'll continue to put on the pressure as we go in towards turn 2 and the chance for another DRS. He looks much closer this time than he did on the last DRS zone. Opens up for DRS once again. Can he close the gap even more onto Evo? If he can get past Evo, there's no reason why he can't put a little bit of pressure on Frankie as well, but it looks again like Evo is going to manage to keep 4th position just for now going into turns 4 and 5. It's very close between those two, and I dare say they're the closest, bar RS and Nay Danger David, who's now up into 7th place. That's the closest we've got on the grid.
Yeah, fantastic from Danger David, Sector 3 there on lap 10. I was on board, and Dan has spun. Dan has spun. Looked like he was in a great opportunity there to take 4th place, but that spin means he now dropped down to 7th, and Danger David has moved up to 6th. So as I was just talking about there, fantastic Sector 3s. It overtook 2 drivers going into the pit straight, and with that mistake from Dan, he is now up to 6 and 3 seconds behind Skid Solo. Not sure what that means. Is that one singular skid mark? I really don't think I want to know, but a fantastic couple of laps from Nay Danger David after that horrendous start. Dropping to the back of the grid, is now up into 6th place. Sandman very comfortable, over 4 seconds ahead of 2nd place. So yeah, this is playing into Sandman's hands, but the mistakes that happen across the track are really opening the door for Danger David to get back, and with over half the race still to go, it'll be interesting to see where he is. He's going to stay aggressive, he's going to stay really tight on those corners, the back of the car's going to kick out now and then, but for the most part it does seem like it's paying off, as he is now up into 6th place from the back of the grid after that first corner.
Vinienzo might have that opportunity, but I'm just thinking, with him moving on to mediums on lap 1 and pretty much sticking with the same strategy as he did with RS 0121 now going into the pits himself, as there's a yellow flag out in Sector 2, and I believe that is one of the Alpines. Is it Kwan? It is Kwan that's come off on Sector 2, heading in towards the final corner, heading on to the pit straight. He's back onto the track now, maybe needing to go into the pits. RS0121 is currently there. But no, with Danger David going on to the medium tyres, up in 6th place, Sandman still on medium tyres, Vinienzo on hard tyres. Do you think that when it comes to pitting, Danger David's going to have an advantage to be able to go onto the soft tyres, whereas Sandman might have to move on to something different with his tyres being a little bit younger, albeit by 1 lap, it's still a little bit younger?
Still going to have to pit, and I do think if I was in that situation, I would have gone on to hards to not have to pit again, but seems to be paying off so far. We'll see at the end of the race if it was the right decision or not. That's only really the time when you can judge that choice to go from medium to medium, but just on board with Quincy in 11th place after that spin, very close behind Racing Wheel 027 as they go into Castle. Going to be looking now to regain the spots that they have lost. Took Castle really well, but as it stands, the one of only 2 drivers on the track that are less than a second behind the driver in front, but the Sandman's increasing the gap, is now taking the pit.
Sandman's pitted.
Yeah, do you think, as it stands, this is pretty much the perfect drive from the championship leader?
Yeah, so far he's done everything. He's been simply faultless, hasn't he? And it's allowed Vincenzo to take the lead, and Danger David is going to come out just ahead of him as well, as there's a yellow flag now in Sector 1. He has come out ahead of Sandman. Sandman's switched onto the hard tyres. So Danger David, if he can hold on, can try and get a bit more of a lead on Sandman on the quicker tyres, albeit a little bit older, as we now have the safety car out again. Do you box now, as Danger David, onto... You've got to go for a different type of tyre, haven't you? Or do you stay out and hope for maybe something different? This is where we start to see. I think Vincenzo will probably come in at this point. I think that might even give Danger David the lead, because I think Ivor and maybe Skid Solo can stay out. Ivor's got to come in for the pit as well. I think both of those two, first and second, come in. That moves Danger David up to second, Sandman into third place, and we might actually get to see the two leaders of the Drivers' Championship go neck and neck before this race is done. We were unfortunate not to see it on the first corner, as Danger David took a time penalty and a collision, lost his front wing, had to pit. I'm really interested to see where he decides to go with this and what his strategy is and his approach to make sure he's keeping the pressure on the current championship leader. He leads him by 2 seconds at the moment. The safety car, however, is out. We are coming up towards the pit straight, so we'll start to see now any of these drivers that are going in. Primed for a pit stop at the moment is Vincenzo, Ivor and Danger David. But with 13 laps left, you don't want to risk the soft tyres. Vincenzo and Ivor can both drop in for mediums if they wanted. Danger David, if he pits now and goes for mediums, he's going to have to pit again. So does he go for the hard and match what Sandman's doing and just try to trust himself to be quicker and take the corners and get that at speed advantage? Or do you wait on a little bit longer, try and get that advantage from the restart, and then go in for softs?
You've got to go now, haven't you? Because you pit for softs, you manage them while the safety car's out, and then you push them.
Well, he is. He's going in.
Yeah, he's going in. So this is now a case of, let's see what tyres he picks. Does he go hard, or does he take the risk of softs lasting for the rest of the race? He's gone hard. Okay, so maybe not the case. Sandman now up into third, having pitted already. And again, I suppose it poses the question, does, if he starts pushing Vincenzo, his teammate, does he play the Mark Webber role and let him go past? But Toxic CZ10 or C210, Toxic has got a time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Didn't fancy putting the brakes on, and I've heard he's ran 3 people over going into the pit, so got a slight time penalty for that. So again, safety car out yet again. We did seem to have a moment there where the grid started to separate. So yeah, we'll see what happens now. The tactics and strategies are paying off.
Danger David's come out in 6th place. Truckster's come out just ahead of him. On hard tyres, everyone in front of him, but Vincenzo still has to pit now. Do you think that's maybe an error from Ferrari? Unless they pit him now, do you think that could just be an error? I'm going to go on board with Vincenzo, actually, to see if he does go into the pits. But do you think that might be an error if he doesn't, where Ferrari could have just gifted Danger David the chance of 2nd place? Because when this restarts, based upon the speed that Danger David was gaining just before the safety car came out, he looked destined to be putting more pressure on those cars ahead. And I do still think he's in with a good shout of putting that pressure on the likes of Sandman and Skid Solo.
Well, look, when you have this many pits in 14 laps, any kind of strategy can go out of the window, because the first one comes out and that adjusts your strategy, and then another one comes out and another in. And like you said, I think we've had, 2, maybe 3 laps of
I think he just caught the wall. I think he just caught the wall there whilst he was trying to warm up his tyres a little bit. It looked like the back end of the car may have just collided with the wall. So that could maybe force his hand into the pit stop. We'll see now if he's going to do it. It doesn't look like he's lining up to go in. He's not. He's going to stay out for now. And he's going to follow that safety car around, as we do see Skid Solo go into the pits. And it does mean it is a 1-2 for the Ferrari. And now your question might actually be, do the Ferraris swap the cars on the restart and allow Vincenzo to get as far forward as possible, and Sandman to get as far forward as possible, and Vincenzo to back up for Danger David, just to make things a bit tougher for the Red Bull, who's now gone up into 4th place?
We shall see. Safety car is in no rush to go in by the looks of it. So let's find out. I'm on board with Sandman as we speak. Not really much to discuss. 14 drivers left. 5 have gone out. 3 for DNFs. Toxic has a time penalty, as I say, and is facing court proceedings after the race for running over those 3 people. I am hearing though that none of them are seriously injured, so that is.
You're an idiot sometimes.
I was going to keep it going. I wondered how long it would take you to say something, so I appreciate that.
I just left you to it, mate.
I was going to start creating backstories for the 3 people, but I don't have to worry about that now. But yeah, what do you? We spoke about Enzo earlier. What strategy does he take coming out of the safety car? Does he back off and allow Sandman to get away? With him now in first place, I'll pose the question to you again as a teammate, considering the drivers' championship that they are. Do you let Sandman go past and carry on blocking, or do you play it sensible and not allow the other drivers to potentially find an open door and just take the constructors' points? What do you think you do from this position in first place when the safety car goes in?
I think to begin with, straight away, you have to play it sensible. Have to play it on the air on the side of caution, if you will. And I think he's got to keep first place. If he allows Sandman to go by, like you said, he's opening the door there to Trugster or to Danger David himself. It's very close between those 4 at the front. And if he does move out of the way, you're kind of gifting that opportunity for them. If maybe a couple of laps in, if you get to a couple of laps in before we get another yellow flag or a safety car, which is coming in this lap, then you look at the potential of letting Sandman go if you're holding him up. Because he's still got a pit. There you go, as A-Rush has left the session from 16th place and his retirement earlier on. He's probably enjoyed watching these yellow flags as the safety car prepares to go in. Enzo is the leader, which means he will tell us when we are set to get things back underway. It's very close between him and Sandman. It looked like they were very close to colliding. As we prepare to get things back underway, I'll go on board with Sandman because there's a chance I'm going to be able to see things a little bit better there as well.
Yeah, I am as well.
From the camera.
Is potentially looking at an open door. Danger David is now up to 4th place, by the way. But I'm on board with Trugster as you're on board with Sandman. Sandman has took a little bit of a look and has opened the door for Trugster to move up into 2nd place. Now that means what happens now? Does Enzo or
Trugster's knocking on the door at first.
He is. He's got the inside. He's got the inside there. Sandman is right behind. Danger David has closed the gap from over a second. I'm on board with Danger David, line. So I've got a full view of the 3 drivers.
Enzo's gone wide. Enzo's gone wide. He's gone wide and he's dropped all the way down to 9th place. He's gifted the lead to Trugster and he's gone wide into that corner. There's a little bit of a run-off, so there's no damage, and he's managed to regain the track. He's in 9th place at the moment and he's gone wide again. He's gone wide on the following corner again, so he's dropped down to 12th place. He's still got to pit, but 15-lap-old tyres are starting to take their toll on Enzo, who we said it could have been a risk to stay out there.
Trugster's gone wide. Sandman now leads Danger David up into 2nd. Sorry to interrupt, Adam, but Trugster went very wide the corner before the castle and opened the door for Sandman, Danger David and Dan to move up into the podium spots. So now, as it stands, Sandman is back in the lead. Danger David, after a horrendous start, has fantastically moved from the back of the grid up into 2nd, less than a second, and he's a bit of a wobble there, but Dan has moved up into the final podium spot. But what a corner there going into the castle, as the top 3 completely changed within half a lap. And Adam, I tell you what, when there's no safety car, there is some action in this league. But yeah, as it stands, it is back to where we were at the start of the race. Sandman in 1st, Danger David in 2nd, and Dan has now moved back up to claim that final podium spot. But there's plenty of time to go, plenty of action as T. Brand moves up into 4th. Trugster is pitting, and Maverick takes the inside corner going into the 1st corner, and there's contact between T. Brand and Maverick. I'm not really sure how clean that was from T. Brand. Maverick looked like he had the line, and Maverick is in the wall. It's all happening now after that safety car comes in. Maverick had moved up into 4th place. And
we've got another safety car. We have another safety car now. This is where it is going to be exciting, because when the safety car goes in, your front 2 are the front 2 in the Drivers' Championship. Sandman in 1st, Danger David in 2nd. We could well, and what looked like after lap 1, have been crowning the champion. Sandman, the current defending champion, had the potential of calling his crown and keeping it himself by the end of this race, but Danger David is putting as much pressure as he can onto the current championship leader. We've had about 4 safety cars, 3 VSCs. Maverick's now out the race, so it is chaos. It hasn't yet stopped.
Chaos?
We've still
I can't
got 9
keep
laps
up, mate.
left to go.
My triggers are wearing out, having to swap between everyone.
Well, I'm on board with
God.
Danger David, and he's been getting very close. As a drive-through penalty opens up for T-Brand now for speeding under the safety car. This is the thing you miss with all assists off. It is quite literally anything can happen at any point. We've seen the chaos that's going on with all these the safety cars, the VSCs, the yellow flags, and everything that's followed. But speeding in the pit lane, speeding under safety cars, those kind of things you don't see in regular leagues. All assists off means anything like that can happen. Of course, these two are going to stay out on the track at the moment. I don't believe there's been any damage from either of them. And it means it's going to be Sandman that is going to be the pace setter behind the safety car. Danger David in second place, both on relatively new hard tyres, 5 and 4 laps respectively, but 3 of those laps for each of them have been behind a safety car. So you've not really seen that sort of wear and tear in them at that point. So Dan in 3rd place, Evo in 4th, RS in 5th, Quincy 6th, Frankie in 7th, Skid Solo in 8th, Racing Wheel in 9th, T-Bran in 10th as it stands, but he's just boxed for soft tyres. Truckster now moves up to 10th. He's in soft tyres as well that are 1 lap old because he pitted, of course, just before the safety car came out. Vinienzo has boxed. He's come out onto medium tyres down in 12th place, and Toxic in 13th. So we asked at the last safety car checkpoint, what do we do about Vinienzo? Is staying out there on hard tyres a risk from Ferrari? We can now see that it was a huge risk and it's paid off for Red Bull.
I don't know what to say anymore, mate. It's just been... Assuming this safety car goes in, you're going to have, 6 or 7 laps to go. Going into that first corner, you've got the 2 drivers at the top of the championship. After everything that's happened so far in this race... Danger David has took a big slide at the castle corner and has fantastically just about kept his car out of the wall. And again, that is something that could have completely changed the dynamic of this race. So yeah, he's driving now. You can tell he's trying to keep those tyres warm. But I tell you what, we were very, very, very close then to Danger David being in the wall and it being a catastrophic race for him and Red Bull. But yeah, just waiting to see when this safety car goes in. We've just gone into sector 3 and I didn't see it pop up, so I think it might be out for another lap. But yeah, again, what do you do here, Adam? I'm going to pose the 3rd scenario for you. We've talked about teammate strategy, but you Danger David, you started in 2nd, you had an incident, you dropped to the back of the grid, you've worked your way back up to 2nd. Do you take that? Do you be sensible? Or do you push and go for everything and make a lunge in that first corner?
First corner, maybe not. I think he's got the time now. He's got the speed. He's already proven that he's managed to get back up here. He's got the strategy and he's got it all on his side at the moment. So what he needs to do is carry that momentum as far around the track as he can, maybe get himself into DRS. And as soon as he's in DRS, I fancy him to get the lead over Sandman. You take too much of a lunge, you've got to make sure you're getting it right. You get it wrong, you're costing potentially Sandman's race and potentially yours. Now, you cost your own race this close to the championship, it's game over, regardless of what happens elsewhere. And I don't think he can afford to do that. I think the best thing he can do is get ahead of Sandman. At the moment, his teammate, D. Perez, he's out. But so's the Ferrari teammate. He's not out of the race, but he's out of the points, which means it's back to that level playing field. His tough part was what Vinienzo was going to do, how Vinienzo was going to support Sandman, something that Perez couldn't do for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And Adam, you're very passionate about the sport. Where can the viewers hear more of what you think about real life F1 events?
Loaded Sport, mate. We talk about Loaded Sport, and it is on YouTube. You can search up Loaded Sport and go on there. We preview and review plenty of the race in action, and I'd like to say that our predictions are more often than not correct, but how difficult is that really to get those correct at the moment?
Well, I'll tell you what, I landed a Lewis getting 2nd this weekend, so I'll take that. But
you did, mate. I'll give you a lot of credit for that, to be fair. I'd got him finishing 3rd place with... I actually had Max in 2nd, didn't I, and Checo in 1st. And that was before qualifying, just so people know I didn't think Perez was going to win from down in 11th place. But it was It was an entertaining race for a good 5-10 minutes, and then Max did Max things and buggered off into the lead, didn't he? But at least here we've got competitive racing. We might have a safety car every 3 to 4 minutes, but we do have entertaining racing in between. Just waiting to see if the safety car does decide it is going in. It's out at the moment, and I don't believe it is going to go in on this lap.
No, the message hasn't flashed up as they've headed into Sector 3, so clearly the driver is enjoying the streets of Baku and doesn't fancy going in yet. Oh no,
here we go. He's going in, which means
I'm on board with Danger David, and yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see. And again, you look at Dan, moved up the grid fantastically well, so we're talking all about the front two, but you look at what happened a couple of laps before that led to this safety car coming out. It might be a case of someone else takes a lunge. You never know. But I was on board with Danger David, but I think I'm going to go on board with Dan in third.
I've just done the exact same.
Here we go. Talk us through it then, mate, as we go into the first corner.
Here we go, coming up to the first corner. Sandman stays onto the outside, a bit of a distance from Danger David as Dan tries to close the gap on him as well. We move up into the second corner with another little bit of a run-off. If Sandman can get this opportunity, he's managed to keep the lead, and Dan nearly hits the wall, but Danger David continues in second place. Nothing dangerous from any of the front three drivers at the moment, playing it very safe with still 6 laps to go. You'd like to think that providing there's no more safety cars, all pit stops are done, as this time it looks like Dan might have locked up a little bit going into turn 3, but keeps the car on the track and closes the gap, if anything, onto Danger David. Do we have a potential upset with Dan on the outside of things looking in? Sandman and Danger David. Any sort of risk from either of those two does open the door for the Alpine of Dan. He's got Ivor just behind him, as there is starting to be a bit of a distance now between him and the current race leader. Danger David still trying to close the gap, goes a little bit wide and maybe even clips the wall there, as we've got a yellow flag in sector 2. Comes up to Castle Corner.
Wall.
Truckster is in the wall, so expect another safety car any moment soon, I'm pretty sure. In the theme of things that are going on in Baku, I'm not sure if this is the case or if it's just because it's a street race that this seems to be happening, as Dan continues down into a couple of quick corners onto a straight, tries to take the left corner and keeps on track just behind Danger David, who is starting to lose grip and track on Sandman as we come up to the longest straight into the Formula 1 calendar. And again, Danger David, the back end of his car, he's done that a couple of occasions, just starts to get away from him a little bit. He's managed to regain control as we move on to the pit straight. He's now around about 1.4 seconds away from Sandman. 1.6 seconds away from Sandman. Dan trying to close the gap. We are just about ready for DRS being opened up in the next lap or two, but Danger David has lost that DRS capability on Sandman. Dan, however, is still within the DRS second that you need to close the gap on Danger David. But I don't think, looking at how these first laps have started since the safety car went in, I don't think he's going to need it as Sandman starts to scamper off into the distance. Nearly a 2-second lead now over second place Danger David, and all that work that he'd done to get himself back up into second place looks like it's going to be for nothing. With 5 laps left to go, he's scampered, and he's really found his pace these last couple of laps, but it's only been hindered by the safety cars. But nonetheless, he's managed to close the gap on numerous opposition. The one that he can't close the gap on is the one that you'd probably, if you asked him, he'd say that more than anything he wanted to. As we come back up to the Castle Corner, the second lap since the safety car goes in, we do have a yellow flag in sector 3. That's near turn 1, and I believe that is it's going to be Frankie, I believe, or Truckster. Is it? Truckster's out. Truckster's got a DNF. Yeah, I think he's out. He's just come up saying that he's out. So Truckster, and the yellow flag has cleared it, which means we are back continuing to race without the intervention of yet another safety car. 2.6 seconds now separates Sandman from Danger David, turning onto the penultimate corner, the final real bend before we get back onto the pit straight, as Dan now about 0.7 tenths of a second, should I say, behind Danger David. When DRS is allowed, if he can keep this distance, he is going to be a threat to this championship battle between Danger David and Sandman. Sandman looks like he's pretty much gone, as DRS is enabled, and we'll see in just a couple of turns' time how Dan can close that gap on Danger David. With the assistance of DRS, we take turn 2 now with Danger David, and we're on board with Dan and the Alpine, and DRS is open. He is trying to push and get past Danger David, and with the pace that he's got at the moment, I think if he can get past him, he poses more of a threat to Sandman than Danger David does at the moment, and that's worrying to say from second place in the championship. Didn't get anything from that DRS, maybe closed the gap a little bit, but couldn't quite get past him or be enough to compete with him at this point. 7/10 of a second now the distance as he takes the left corner quite nicely. Just waiting for any sort of error from David, which has happened in the past. He's had a bit of a spin over the last couple of laps, hasn't he, with the back end of the car, but he's managed to keep it on track as we come up towards, as I like to call it, Crazy Golf Corner, as the third lap since the safety car went in, and it's taken very nicely from Dan as well, just very smooth, like he was just sailing through that, and takes the left turn back onto the tail of Danger David, closing the gap now. 3 seconds between him and Sandman. Any sort of time that Dan is wasting getting closer to Danger David, Sandman is pushing further away. Vinny Enzo, in the meantime, has moved himself up into 9th place. Skin, I'd like to think that you've been looking elsewhere on the track, but with how competitive this last couple of laps promised to be at the safety car, I assume you've been keeping an eye on the front runners.
I've actually been looking sort of more in the middle of the grid, mate. Great coverage there of what's been happening in the top 3, but the middle of the pack, sort of 7th to 10th for those last few points, have got really close in the last few laps. So I've been dropping in between the drivers here, and Vin, after the mistake earlier on, is looking now to move even further up the grid as he moves up into 8th place, just behind Quincy. He's looking to potentially take a lunge into the first corner. He has got the inside line. Quincy, though, fantastic first corner there, has maintained being ahead of him and just scrapes the chicane there. But yeah, so I know all the attention, and Vin has actually managed to move up into 7th place. So fantastic first sector there of lap 23. But yeah, all the attention, of course, on the front of the race. But I'll tell you what, Adam, there's some great racing going on towards the back end of the points here. And yeah, I've quite enjoyed watching that while you've been covering what's happening at the front of the grid. But yeah, Sandman, as it stands, very comfortably ahead with just over 3 laps to go. But yeah, Vin is doing his best to move back up the grid to hopefully give them the best possible chance of winning the Constructors going into the final race in Abu Dhabi, as he takes Castle Corner fantastically well yet again. I tell you what, I've never seen more consistency when it comes to that corner in any of our time playing this game. So credit to all the drivers that not only still in the race but have taken part today, because I don't think one driver's gone out by crashing out that corner, which is a massive credit to the abilities of the 20 drivers, or 19 drivers should I say, that have taken part today.
Well, we are back with Dan on the pitch straight. He's lost a bit of distance to Danger David. He's no longer in the DRS zone, and it's now 2.5 seconds the distance between Danger David and Sandman. So he's going to be hoping there's either complacency or an error from the Ferrari driver that's going to open the door for Danger David. As you mentioned, Vinny Enzo's moved himself up into 7th place. He is in DRS zone if he can activate it, maybe in the second DRS zone, if you will. He's knocking on the door of RS 0121 for 6th place. He's on fresher, he's on warmer medium tyres, the quicker tyres as they're more commonly known. In 7th place, only 6 laps old. He's within the second. DRS is activated as he comes up towards turn 4. Takes it quite nicely, as it looks like RS 0121 might have just caught the wall there. I don't think there was any significant damage, but he's taken a bit of a spin there, and it's opened the door for Vinny Enzo. Vinny Enzo goes past him quite comfortably, takes up into 6th place, defends quite nicely into the next turn, takes the left and then the right. He's still got Frankie 1811 just in front of him, but he has taken that quite comfortably from the Mercedes driver, and the two Mercedes are now in 7th and 8th as Vinny Enzo moves ever closer to confirming Ferrari as world champions, with only one Red Bull scoring. The higher the Ferrari can get of Vinny Enzo, the better it looks heading into Abu Dhabi. I think it's still going to be a case of the Drivers' Championship is up for grabs next Monday at 7:30 GMT as well, so we hopefully will have a bit more entertainment instead of safety cars for you in that race. With this being a street race, I suspect that's played a big part in quite a bit of the incidents that have been happening. We are setting up for the penultimate lap of the penultimate race of Season 10 of the All Assist Off League, with on board with Vinny Enzo in 6th place as it stands at the moment. He is trying with all he can to get closer to Frankie 1811. It makes all the difference of when he pitted on those hard tyres after coming off just before the most recent safety car. I'd like to think we're not going to get a safety car heading in towards the final point. As Vinny Enzo takes into turn 1, we have a yellow flag on sector 1, and it is No Danger David that has come off, and he's lost position to Ivor. He's fallen down into 4th place. I didn't quite see exactly what happened, but the suspect is it was the back end of that car that spun a little bit away from him, that it has been doing the entirety of this race. But on this occasion, he couldn't quite keep control of it, and he falls down into 4th place, and that may just be the difference between whether he can compete with Ferrari next weekend or whether Sandman walks out as the second season consecutive drivers champion. He's still just behind Ivor. There's still a bit of a way to go. We've got 1 lap left, and he's going to need to regain control of that car and close the gap, but he's struggling with any of these sort of chicanes. The back end of the car just seems to be getting away from him on an all too regular basis of the Red Bull as he takes Castle Corner very nicely, and he's trying to close the gap on Ivor. Who would have predicted that it was an Alpine and Alfa Romeo and a Ferrari that take an Aston Martin, sorry, not an Alfa Romeo, an Aston Martin and a Ferrari that take the top 3 positions of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix? And I'll tell you the answer to that: nobody predicted it, especially when you look at a Red Bull in 1st place and the 2 Ferraris in 2nd and 3rd at the end of qualifying. We will move back over to Dan as he tries to close the gap on Sandman, who now nearly has a 7-second lead. And it looks like the Alpine is going to take 2nd place. He leads Ivor by just over a second, which means the Aston Martin can't quite get himself into DRS. He does have one last chance of it as we are now on the final lap of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Coming up to turn 1, he's got himself into DRS, into the detection zone as well. If he can keep it below, he hasn't done so as there's a yellow flag in sector 3, and I think that's going to be Toxic that is sat at the back, and he's managed to get his car back on track. As we remain on board with Ivor 32, who is now outside of DRS, and he's going to have to put everything on the line if he's going to try and get 2nd place. But I'd like to think that the Aston Martin will be happy with finishing in 3rd, the closest competitor that he's got.
There is a spin. Vinny and Frankie going into a turn together.
Oh, Vinny Enzo's out.
Vinny Enzo is out, yep. Frankie went wide into the corner. Vinny hit the wall, and Quincy has now hit the wall as well. Some chaos in the last lap. I was just on board there watching that as you was following the front of the grid. But Vinny is out. Huge implications going into the final weekend. And Quincy has just got back on track there and straightened the car up. But yeah, we've lost almost half of the grid through instance in this race. It's been action-packed, and Vin has done so well to climb back up the grid, and right at the death has crashed out. So yeah, a comfortable win for Sandman. But Adam, what's this going to mean for the Constructors' Championship going into the final race next week?
Well, I am on the board with Sandman as it stands at the moment. 8 seconds lead. Yeah, well, I said it. And it's about to cross the line. VSM Sandman takes the win, takes the top step of the podium in Azerbaijan. 8 seconds behind him. Uncompetitive from Ivor is where Dan's going to finish in 2nd. I don't mean uncompetitive in general. He's managed to finish 3rd, and that's much better than I've done in an all assists off league. As No Danger David finishes in 4th place. The Mercedes of RS0121 finishes in 5th. Frankie down in 6th place will follow next, and Skid Solo. We wait for Quincy now on the pit straight as well, and Toxic is the only driver, and I feel for him here, the only driver that's finishing this race that isn't getting at least a point for doing so. We've lost Vinny Enzo, Trugster, Maverick, Kwan, A-Rush, D. Perez, Guran and Sir Ibo through the course of this race, but it is the championship leader of VSM Sandman that walks away with the top step of the podium and extends his lead at the top of the Drivers' Championship. The current defending champion, his teammate, on the final lap fell foul of the walls of Baku, and as a result it means Ferrari limit their distance away from Red Bull at the top of the Constructors' Championship. We'll wait and see just what it means for the Drivers' Championship. They're released on a Thursday, so we'll know exactly what happens with VSM Sandman and how that affects Danger David. But I can almost certainly tell you the Constructors' Championship will be contested next weekend in Abu Dhabi. Before the race started, it was 3.5 points the difference. Skin, that's your first experience as well as mine of an online league. What's your thoughts of it?
Fantastic first race, plenty of chaos, plenty of action. RS gets a shout out for driver of the day, starting in 19th on the grid and finishing in 5th. And you've got to look at Dan as well in the Alpine, starting in 16th, getting up to a podium and that second spot. Some fantastic racing there, and there's not anybody that I can see on the race results that have actually finished, other than Frankie, I think, in 6th place. Nobody else has finished in the position that they started in, which tells you everything that you need to know about how chaotic this race has been. But Sandman, comfortable win, got to be buzzing now going into the final race next week.
Absolutely, that's it from us. So we've heard from the driver of the day as RS. Skin, who would you give your driver of the day to?
I've got to give it to Dan. Getting from 16th up into 2nd, in and amongst all the chaos as well. Danger David deserves a shout. His car was uncontrollable at times, but kept it. After dropping to the back of the grid to get back into 4th place, all things considered, got to be happy and still stands a chance, you would think. But yeah, just I think I need a drink after this, mate. I don't know about you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for joining us. It has been an absolute pleasure. We hope to join you next Monday at 7:30 for the season 10 conclusion of the All Assist Off League. Skin, thank you very much for joining me.
Cheers, Aggie.